Hello everybody, welcome back to the channel. My name is Ross, I'm a film graduate. If this is your first time joining, welcome to the expansion, I guess, as we're leaving Doctor Who behind, even though there's news on that. Anyway, this isn't about that today. Today, we are here to discuss Stranger Things, as we will be for the next month, I guess. I'm hoping to do weekly or fortnightly releases in the build-up to Stranger Things 5, the final season, and just sort of, if you're not got the time to rewatch the whole show, because trust me, I'm struggling. It's a lot to watch. In prep for the final season, I just kind of give like a quick run through my thoughts on each season, kind of episode rankings and season rankings, I guess, as we go along. Yes, and I have my iPad.
Wow.
Just going to lay the groundworks. Love Stranger Things. I think it's an amazing show. I do really enjoy it. Just in case you're wondering, there is a cup of tea, of course. I do think it's a great show. I am very scared for the ending. I don't know, season 4 kind of let me down, but that's not today's issue. Today we're here to talk about season 1, which is obviously the season I've watched the most, because every time a new season comes out, I go back to the start and I rewatch it all. So kind of as we get along, it's going to kind of be more of a refreshing watch, because I've only watched season 4 the one time, whereas I've watched season 3, twice, season 2 3 times, and season 1 4, now 5 times. So I'm just going to kind of go through each episode, kind of what happens, how it kind of formulates the series, because as a contrast to my Doctor Who videos, where that's very episodic with a few through lines, this is purely serialised format where each episode is contributing to one piece of this whole 8 episode in this season, 8 chapter story. So we kick things off with chapter 1, The Vanishing of Will Byers. And for each episode I've wrote like a little monologue to start off with. So for this one, it's a very strong and near perfect opener. From the beginning scene, we are thrust into the story and the action. The mystery, the kids, the aesthetics are all great from the off, and the balancing and intertwining of various characters, plot lines and mysteries flow so well, and they equally hold our interest. Pair that with the end reveal of the lab being after Elle and the kids finding her in the forest. Where the hell is this story going? So obviously the major moments in this episode is Will's abduction at the start. Well, before that we have the whole Hawkins lab chasing, which is just a great way to bring us into this world. Then after that, Will's abduction, which is just like instantly iconic, such an important scene in the whole show. Although I do have a few questions with that, because as we kind of learnt later on in the show, how's the Demogorgon doing all of this stuff? But that's a question for another day. Alongside Will being abducted in kind of the beginning of the police investigation, we then get Elle, or 11 at this point, who wanders upon a diner, and the diner owner looks after her for the day until social services comes to collect her. They shoot this lovely man, and Elle somehow stops 2 men with guns and escapes into the woods, and is then later found by the main core kids as they're searching for their friend Will. And alongside that ending, Joyce receives a phone call from who she thinks is Will breathing down the phone, and this weird creature can be heard in the background, and then it fries the circuits. That's a very simplification of the episode, but I'm trying to do this snappily. It's a very, very good opener. It kind of instantly gives us mysteries, and we begin to get nuggets of information. And I think the main thing that really glues us to this show is both the mysteries, but I think it's just also the characters and the dynamics, and I think these kids are so good. Like Mike, Dustin, Will, Lucas and Elle, but we don't really see much of Elle and her personality yet. Those 4 are all really good at kind of just making us invested in the show. It's sort of their friendship, the kind of that desperation. I guess Joyce as well, because she really makes us care from like the mother's perspective of, I need to find my son. Like obviously you would, but she does such a great job at getting you emotionally invested in this boy we've only seen for like 5 minutes. So yeah, fantastic episode 1, which I personally gave a 4 out of 5. Then we move on to chapter 2, The Weirdo on Maple Street, which I gave another 4 out of 5. It's another really strong episode that continues to lay the pieces of the mystery and begins exploring what we have already... That doesn't make any sense. So again, we kind of get a few major moments in this episode, but I'd say the first 2 are very good at just laying the foundations, which I guess they have to do. And I kind of think that's the only thing I'm kind of scared for as I rewatch further along, is how like the structure might be quite similar each series. Like the first two are the slower build-ups, then you kind of get like reveals on those first two in like 3 and 4, and then you kind of take another step back, and then it's more. That could be the only issue, but in this season it's not an issue because it's done perfectly. If you can't tell, I really like this season. Elle reveals her powers to the kids because she recognises a photo of Will, and then Mike gets the other two round, and they want to go tell Mike's mum because they now know. Well, Lucas wants to go tell Mike's mum because like they know they're in danger because of the bad men coming after them, and then Elle slams the door shut with her mind, and it's kind of this big reveal of like, well, she has powers. Fair enough. Joyce gets another phone call, and then we get this really cool, like, I'm saying it like I've seen 80s horror films, many of them, I haven't really, but like some really cool imagery of like a solid wall being pushed, like it's like sort of like a plastic bag, and it's like this creature pushing through the wall. That's really creepy, really good. A character I didn't speak about in the last episode, Nancy. She is dating this guy called Steve, the popular kid. She's like kind of like the smart, pretty girl at school. She's way more layered than that, at least in this season. She's trying to like persuade her friend Barb, #Justice for Barb. She's trying to persuade her friend Barb to go to this party with them, and Barb agrees reluctantly, mainly just to kind of like keep Nancy in check, because Barb is just doing God's work telling Nancy to kind of get a grip over this popular kid who, to be honest, is a bit of a prick throughout the season. He does redeem himself, but most of the season he's unlikable. Anyway, Barb goes to this party reluctantly. She tries to fit in with them by shotgunning a beer. She slices her thumb open. By the time she's sorted herself out, everyone else is kind of going upstairs, if you know what I mean.
Some say yes, some say no. I don't know.
Nancy just tells her to go home. Barb, being the great friend that she is still going to wait for Nancy and give her a lift home. But that never comes to fruition because something takes her. And then meanwhile all of this is happening, we do get some very strange, questionable moments from Jonathan, but then turns his camera to the people at the party, and then later takes photos of them naked or getting undressed. It's actually kind of shocking how he comes back from this. He does. Like, they kind of address it. It's like his whole, like, oh, I'd rather observe than be in the group. But it's a hell of a thing to come back from. And he does, I guess. Yeah.
You're woke.
Anyway, moving on. And then the other main thing is that Hopper learns of Elle through a witness at Benny's diner who saw her, and then Hopper starts to think, could this be Will? Could this be Will with a shaved head? Obviously it's not, but this sort of kind of helps bringing Hopper and a police investigation into the Elle storyline and the Hawkins Lab storyline. And that's sort of what's really great in these two episodes, is kind of like we have many standalone mysteries. It's kind of obvious they're all going to come together, but we can't quite figure out how. We don't really know fully what's going on. Some strange things are happening.
Respectfully, shut the fuck up for a minute.
Sorry, that was dreadful. And yeah, so it's very good at just keeping us intrigued, and it balances them all very well. Chapter 3, Holly Jolly. This is where the show really gains some momentum. And that's not to really discredit what came before, but like everything this episode does kind of just takes the show in a new direction that at least I remember when I first watched it, was kind of just like, was not expecting this. The uncertainty of Will's fate, the lights that became so iconic, the creature in the wall again. It's just, what the hell is going on here? #Justice for Barb.
Oh no, come on, this is getting silly.
It's taken into a mysterious version of our world, presumably the Upside Down that we learned about, and is dragged about by the Demogorgon. Poor girl. She deserves so much better. Nancy kind of feels a bit guilty, notices Barb isn't at school, finds out she hadn't gone home the night before, goes looking, finds her car still parked where they left it, goes into the woods, and then notices that there's a creature of sorts running around it. She gets scared off and runs home. She then comes forward to her mum that Barb's gone missing. We also kind of get the whole confrontation of Jonathan and his creepy photos, because he gets caught out developing them. and then that kind of weirdly brings Nancy and him closer. More on that later. Joyce having now a connection with like the lights flickering every time that Will tries to talk to her, kind of goes to town, decorating it with strings of lights left, right and centre, buying every Christmas light she can. And then Mrs. Wheeler, Mike's mum, Karen and her daughter Holly come round with some, say like the daughter made it. The daughter's just there because the mum has to look after her. They come round with some food to kind of feed Joyce while she's probably not cooking. Understandably so, may I add. And then Holly wanders off, following the lights as they flicker, and again sees something coming through the wall. And then Joyce really pushes for an answer because she needs to know if she's losing it or if this is actually happening. But Karen kind of is a good mum and stops this lady from shouting at her daughter. So anyway, yeah, Joyce covers her house in Christmas lights. We then, in terms of the kids' storyline, Elle leads the kids to Will's house as they go on like a little search mission in the evening, and the kids are like, "That's not where Will is. Will is missing. Are you thick?" But as they sort of kind of argue over whether to hand Elle over or what to do because she's not being as useful as they were hoping, Mike's her biggest defender. He won't let anyone discredit her until police cars come zooming past, and the kids follow them. Whilst this is all happening, Joyce is having another crazy moment in her house as the lights go to town. The creature pushes through the wall and she kind of runs away. Whilst that's all happening, the police are dragging a body out of the quarry, which is confirmed to be Will.
My God. What's happening?
So on the one hand, it's like, this is what I mean when I say this episode really just gives it so much momentum, because it's like, well, that is Will's body, that's the outfit he was wearing that night. But if that is Will, who's Joyce talking to? Why is Elle lying? Mike kind of finally snaps and he's like, why would you lie? Who does that? It just really, even though we've gained some information on the Upside Down, there is a creature, there is like some kidnappings going on, there is something going on with Joyce and her lights. It just completely opens up so many more mysteries of, well, what is going on though? Because we're now being shown that Will's dead in our world. And to me, that is great TV because I need the next episode. And you best believe I pressed next episode. The last episode, 4.5 out of 5. Chapter for the Body, 4.5 out of 5. And this one is just another fantastic episode that's just even better than the one before. Hopper, who I haven't really spoken about much so far because he's kind of just leading the police investigation. He's more going down the rabbit hole of chasing after Elle unintentionally without realising Elle isn't Will. But that does bring him, in this episode, into discovering the conspiracy. So Hopper really takes the focus here. We actually start getting some solid answers, but that just leads to more mysteries, which I think is how you do a real good mystery show. It's just never one mystery consistently throughout. It's, we're answering that, but now we've got a next question. We're constantly developing. Joyce goes to see the body. She refuses to accept it's her son. She asks to see a birthmark, and we never see this birthmark, but I presume that's why she storms out and says it's not her son. And then Jonathan's kind of accepted death already, and he's like, I'm going to plan the funeral, like, you need to be here. And she's like, not a chance. Will is still looking after Elle, but they're not friends at the moment. They're not happy with each other. Mike's just telling her to stop playing with the radio. And then suddenly, nose bleeding, we can hear Will's voice on the radio. So Ella's managed to use her powers to find and let Will speak through the radio. So we're kind of instantly told, is Will dead? Or like, kind of one way that I took it is like, is Will communicating from the afterlife? Is that what this dimension sort of thing is? Is that what, like, him communicating through the lights is like his sort of soul? Obviously it's not.
Spoilers.
So then Will gets all the kids round. No, not Will. Mike tries to get to her to do it again, but she can't. And they kind of realise, oh, we need a bigger radio. And back in like episode 1, they're part of the AV club and they've got a new radio. Convenient, I know. But they're like, we'll sneak Elle into school, we'll dress her up. It's a proper like E.T. homage. We'll dress her up in a dress, a wig. Mike kind of calls her pretty. It's really sweet. So I didn't mean that in like a weird way.
Excuse me?
Anyway, but yeah, so they sneak into school and they're kind of dragged into this assembly where they kind of like a little moment of silence for Will, and there's loads of kids crying and they're like, look at these fakies. They weren't friends with him. They didn't even care about him. And then the two bullies, because obviously they're nerdy kids, they're getting bullied, it's the 80s, what else would there be? Well, they laugh throughout the assembly, basically. And then Mike confronts them afterwards and pushes one of them over. Then he goes to swing, or like to start on him, and Elle freezes him still with her mind and makes him piss himself. And the whole school laughs, of course. Kind of just some nice little satisfying, you're an evil kid who laughs at a kid dying. That's just horrible. There's also a lot of just off-the-cuff homophobia towards Will from these kids. So anyone that says, oh, like, that whole Will plot line in season 3 and 4 came out of nowhere. No, it didn't. It didn't. It was always there in the show. Just it's actually done quite casually and like rooted in like bullying and name calling that maybe we just didn't really notice it. They eventually make their way to the radio, and Elle not plugs herself in literally, but like she uses it. It's really cool, like all the lights cut out. Meanwhile, Joyce is determined to find Will, so she plays his favourite song, Should I Stay or Should I Go Now? She hears Will, she like kind of peels away her wallpaper, and it's like this like barrier separating them, like a solid glass, and he has to run because the Demogorgon's coming after him, and she tells him to, and she starts swinging an axe through the wall, but it's too late by the time she gets through the wall. The gate boy's gone, and it's just now an empty hole in her house. Meanwhile, the kids are all hearing this like conversation, and they're now like, okay, Will is alive, we don't care about that body, he's out there, we're going to find him. And as I said, Hopper does take the forefront this episode, and he sort of tricks the guy who found the body in the quarry into like confessing he wasn't supposed to be there, beats up in the alleyway, gets the truth, notices like a classic Men in Black car drive off, and he sort of then starts connecting that this is a conspiracy. Meanwhile, early in a few episodes ago, when they went to Hawkins Lab, the CCTV they were showing didn't have any rain in, so he knew they were covering something up. Pair that with the girl, he knows something strange is going on with Hawkins Lab and everything there. So this takes Hopper to drive to Hawkins Lab at night and break in. And just this episode, probably better than the last because we're finally getting answers. 4.5 out of 5 for me. I think the ending of Hopper going into the lab, you're just like, I need to know what's going on there. Because we know there's like the portal, we know from what we've seen that something strange is going on in the basement, we know it's under quarantine down there, but we want someone to go in there and find out the truth because shady government officials. So I think what I'd say at this point in the series, every episode ends in such a good way that when we kind of finish it, we need the next one. And I think that's what makes Stranger Things such a good watch. Like, sometimes it might drag a little bit in the middle, but normally you open really strong, it closes really strong, and the middle does some really good like character work on their relationships, their dynamics, and it's just keeps you hooked the whole way through, basically. So chapter 5 is called The Flea and the Acrobat. And this is just a very solid follow-up to what came before. It's not as strong as the two before, because we're kind of back on that establishing the mysteries, whereas the last two were kind of answering some of the mysteries. Oh, I forgot to say, in the last one, Hopper cuts Will's body open and it's filled with stuffing, which is like the reveal of Will isn't dead. This is a cover-up. So yeah, this episode, chapter 5, it does just kind of establish the second half of mysteries as we go into the series. So we open where we left off. Hopper breaks into Hawkins' lab. He gets underground. He finds like the weird environment that's growing down there now. He finds the gateway. And then he's knocked out cold and he wakes up in his cabin, and it's kind of set up to look like he's just like had a crazy night on pills, but he searches everywhere and he finds a microphone, so he knows that he's right. He knows it was true. So we also throughout the series have been like kind of, because it's all set in the 80s obviously, it's very like Cold War era, kind of that espionage, that can you trust the governments, like they're doing everything they can to protect. They're listening into phone calls. You get like these really cool, like people just sat there smoking, listening to every phone call. Hawkins' lab heard the Will radio transmission, So they now know that Elle was at that school, so they kind of have an idea, and they have an idea who with the kids, obviously. At the funeral for Will, Mr. Clark explains the concept of parallel dimensions, gateways, and how that would probably like take a mass amount of energy, or would create like a new magnetic pole. So they're going to use their compasses to find him. It's smart stuff. I quite like that. Hopper, once he's cleared his house, he goes on to Joyce's to fill her in, and then he sees the mammoth of Christmas lights, and it's a really funny moment of like, fuck me, we've got a lot of unscrewing to check for microphones here. After the funeral, all the kids, they decide they're going to go out on a hunt for the gate. They're going to use their compasses, and after a bit of time, Dustin notices that they've done a loop, and basically Lucas has clocked onto Elle throughout the day that she's been acting off, and it's because she's been fiddling with the compass of her mind and deliberately taking them away from the gateway. And Lucas has never been Elle's biggest fan. He doesn't care for her. He just wants Will back. Whereas Mike is obviously in love with this girl and also really wants Will back. But they kind of have different methods of going about it. And we've kind of had this underlying tension building this whole series. And it kind of comes to fruition here because Lucas snaps. Mike tries to defend her. They kind of get into like a bickering fight. And then Elle sends Lucas flying away. And he like kind of storms off after because he's like, well, fair enough, like he could have died. And clearly Elle was picking Mike. And I think that's like what makes Lucas really interesting. Because my flatmate, Liv, she was like, oh, I actually just hate him in this season. I was like, I kind of get you, but I don't hate him. He's wrote very well because it's understandable, his like reaction. He doesn't want the group to change. He doesn't want Elle to come in and replace Will. He just wants to find Will. Meanwhile, they're being dragged into this whole conspiracy. Like, he just wants Will back. And I don't agree with his methods. I don't agree with how he's reacting. But also, he's a kid. It creates, like, I think it's just done very well, personally. I should also throw out, I mentioned Jonathan and Nancy in a while, that they, in the last episode, Nancy kind of connects up the teared-up photograph of her, and you can see Barb sat on the diving board, and then in the corner, there's like a figure, and she wants to know what that is. Could that be the thing that she saw run past her in the woods? Could that be what's got Barb? So she goes to Jonathan, and together they develop and enlarge the photo, and it's clearly like a creature thing. So they're like, okay, we're going to go out and we're going to hunt for it. As any teenager would do, I suppose.
Yeah, of course.
So in this episode, those two go off into the woods with some weapons, and they go hunting to try and find Barb and Will. And Nancy finds in this tree this little like organism. I want to call it a gateway, but it's more like a seal, which she goes through. And by going through, she is in the Upside Down, and she stumbles across the Demogorgon and has to kind of run away. But as she's running away, the portal closes. And that's that episode. I'm not saying it's a bad one. I'd say it's probably one of the weaker episodes. Not a bad thing at all. But just for the series, 4 out of 5 still. But it's just like kind of that, we're back on the back burner after those 2 really high momentum episodes. So then we have Chapter 6, The Monster. And this is another great episode that keeps the story building but lacks the massive payoff to elevate it to a 4.5. And with that said, the ending cliffhanger is just so good. It's so good. So we open with Nancy escaping Upside Down. We kind of get this like blurring of realities because she's calling out for Jonathan, and like he can hear the echoes of her and she can hear the echoes of him, but they're obviously not in the same dimension, which is just really cool. And it's kind of like, so there is like blurring of these boundaries. It's kind of this mystery of how does this operate, and we're kind of slowly getting information with like, somehow you can communicate through lights, somehow you can hear echoes. There's ways. It's just cool. It's cool. He helps her break out just before the gap closes, and they kind of bond over their shared trauma of what's just happened. And he goes back to hers. He's like, I'll stay the night if you want, just to kind of like keep you company. She's like, yeah, I'd like that because am I fuck sleeping after that? She develops this whole theory that the Demogorgon operates like a shark because it came after the deer that was bleeding out after being hit, and Barb had also cut her thumb, and that's why it came after her. So they create this theory that the Demogorgon operates like a shark and it's like a predator in that sense. Meanwhile, that they're kind of bonding over what the hell just happened.
What the hell just
Steve comes around to apologise because he kind of feels like he's gone a bit too far with the whole camera thing. They haven't been too close recently. And he sees them sat on the bed together.
Will you just
shut up?
Assumes the worst, and instead of talking to Nancy, later in the episode, he decides the best thing to do is to graffiti over the cinema, "Nancy Wheeler the slut." Well, and I said he's a prick this season, he's awful, until the last episode.
Spoilers.
So Nancy and Jonathan throughout this episode, I'll just continue on them, they decide to continue prepping. They're going to go buy some proper hunting supplies now, some bear traps, I don't know what they're dealing with, some more bullets, some rifles. As they're loading up the car, they catch wind of what Steve's done. They go and confront him down an alleyway. I'm pretty sure Nancy slaps Steve, valid. And then kind of Steve then takes out on Jonathan, makes fun of his brother again. Jonathan snaps, starts beating him up. Police come along and Jonathan gets arrested. They look in his car, looks like he's gonna go do some heinous crimes or something. Obviously they then contact Joyce and Hopper. Joyce and Hopper, since they've now kind of on the same page of weird stuff's going on, this is a cover-up, this episode they go out on a little adventure to speak to this lady called Terry Ives, who we briefly got introduced to when they were looking through Hawkins' lab newspaper articles. And she basically, in the 60s, when she was pregnant, took part in some like LSD experiments when she was pregnant, and then she miscarried during childbirth, and she believes that Dr. Brenner stole her child and is using it, but she's now gone non-verbal. That was a dreadful explanation. Anyway, these two go on like a little side quest to go meet with her to ask some questions, but they don't really get any information. She's really not in a great state. And her sister just sort of says she's been like that ever since. She kind of just had like a breakdown because she fell down this whole conspiracy theory of her daughter was still alive. Furthers Hopper and Joyce's conspiracy that it was a cover-up, that there is something weird going on at that lab. They know that the lab is connected to Will, but they just don't fully know how. They don't know if he's been taken by the lab. They don't know fully what, but they're not shutting off that this child does exist, and they think it could be the one that was escaping in the hospital gown that was at Benny's diner. They just now need to find this child, and they think that will get them to where they need to go. But then they obviously get called back because Jonathan's been arrested. Dustin forces Mike to apologise. Els also disappeared. She ran away after her little like outburst, thinking that she's the problem. So Dustin forces Mike to apologise. Mike goes to apologise to Lucas. Lucas just wants it to be them three, but Mike's like, no, you crazy, we need Elle, we need her to find him. So it's like, fine, I'll do it on my own. Goes off on his own little side mission, and to be fair, he makes some very important progress in the investigation, because he's using his compass on his bike, reaches Hawkins' lab, walks around it, notices that the compass is, as he turns, is just pointing to the centre of Hawkins' lab. So that confirms we know where the portal is now. I never know what to call it either. Is it a portal? Is it a gateway? It's not a portal, because in my own mind a portal is not physical, if that makes sense. So I guess I call it the gateway, but it's not really like...
Get a life, get a grip.
Mike and Dustin are off on their own hunt. They stumble across the two bullies from their year who basically want payback for making one of them wee themselves in the assembly. Dustin gets caught at the edge of the quarry and is held at knife point. Which is just insane. Like, why have these kids got a knife? They want Mike to jump off the edge as repayment, which I think is just insane because, you know, murder, weeing myself. equal. Mike, being the absolute great man that he is in this season, is like, no, Dustin, I'm going to do it. And we've also established Will died from this, but Hopper also said earlier in the season that, like, someone in town was lying about jumping from up at this height, because if you jump from this height, that water turns into concrete. So, like, Mike actually does it, and it's showing, like, because this show's clearly, like, not afraid to take a twist that we're not ready for. But he's floating, gets pulled back up, Elle rocks up, breaks the kid with the nice arm, and we get this really just iconic scene where Dustin goes, "She's our friend, she's crazy and she'll kill you."
She's our friend and she's crazy! You come back here and she'll kill you!
Oh, it's so good. I think the absolute charm that Dustin brings is just so, like, heartwarming. Now feels like a perfect time to react. So throughout the season, every time Elle uses her powers or kind of has been reminded of her past, we kind of get like a flashback to her kind of abusive treatment at the lab, her weird relationship with Brenna, how they kind of put her in solitary confinement, how they've been like kind of training her to be like a spy and a locator by like eavesdropping in on conversations, and how she's accidentally stumbled across this creature that we know as the Demogorgon, or the Demogorg.
This is really silly,
as my flatmate likes to call it. So Elle is kind of searching in the past for this, and it's here that we learn not too long ago now, we've been building up to sort of more closer to present. She's sent to find this creature now, because that's now Hawkins' priority. It's no longer the Russians that she should be spying on. They want to know what this creature is. So she's sent to kind of search for it. She finds it and she touches it. And as she touches it, creates a link. And then that's when the gateway in Hawkins' lab opens. And I guess that takes us to the opening of season 1. So we've kind of been slowly spoon-fed that information. And that's a really exciting mini storyline we've had going on there. And then Elle kind of, as she remembers this, she thinks she's the monster. It's all her fault. She's made Will go missing by bringing this monster here. And she's kind of just reassured that she's not. And then Lucas, oh wait, no, not yet. And then Mike and Dustin take her back home because she needs to rest up a bit. This is when Lucas notices that the Hawkins lab people are heading out in like service vans, and he thinks that they're heading for Elle. He like kind of thinks, oh, they're in trouble. So we kind of end there on this massive cliffhanger of Hawkins lab know where Elle is and they're coming for her. So chapter 6, The Monster, gets a 4 out of 5 from me. Been a very consistently strong series. So chapter 7 is called The Bathtub, and just the opening scene alone warrants this episode getting a 4.5 out of 5. It is clearly a rip-off of E.T., but I think it's done in such a good way that this show is clearly a love letter to the 80s, that it can get away with things like that. And it's just so good. It's such like a fun chase. Seeing Elle use her powers, like, we hate these bad men. It's great. So the bike chase, just elite stuff. Hopper and Joyce catch up with Nancy and Jonathan, and again, like, we're now really starting to see these storylines cross over and intertwine into the climax. They kind of fill them in on, as crazy as it sounds, there's a monster, there's another dimension, we're going to go kill it. And then as this is all happening, the bully child with his broken arm and his mum are complaining to the police, and he just blurts out that she did it with her mind. And then Hopper's like, sorry, connecting what they know about Terry Ives, about Hawkins' lab. So then they know they need to find the kids. Hopper and co, we'll call it, they go to the kids' house, to Mike's house, and they see the state there. So they use Will's radio and ask the kids for their location. Hopper comes to the rescue and saves them before the bad men can catch them. So Elle explains there is a way for her to locate Will, but she needs a bathtub. And the kids contact Mr. Clark and ask him, they kind of use his own words against him and get him to tell them how to build there's a word for it, sensory deprivation tank. And that'll basically boost and amplify Elle's powers so she can locate Will. So they do this, they build the tub, they communicate with him, tell him that Joyce and Hopper are going to come for him, they know where he is, and yeah, it's just kind of like, we're really laying the foundation for this finale now. And the episode ends with Will hiding in Castle Byers, where then a Demogorgon just blasts through and captures him, and it's a real like jump scare, but obviously we know it's coming. But it's just kind of like, we know where he is now, we know how to get to him, we know where the portal is. Are we going to make it in time? And yes, Joyce and Hopper break into Hawkins' lab, but they're caught pretty much straight away. And that's everything really for this episode. But it does get a 4.5 out of 5 because it's action at the start, some real good connecting of the storylines. It's kind of the payoff that I was talking about that kind of just gives these episodes that extra edge when they're already consistently strong. The only other one thing I do want to point out here, kind of with the knowledge going into season 5, we know Karen Wheeler, she keeps on getting character posters as if she is one of the main characters. She never really has been.
She was. I don't know who she is. I never knew who she was. I've never seen her before.
She's obviously been the other main mum, but there's like a really interesting conversation I picked up in this episode where the dad, who is just kind of useless and incompetent, he like tries to reassure and says we should trust the government. They're the government, and she just kind of is unsure whether she should be trusting them, and that could just be like that reflection of like, you don't always trust them. But then on the flip side, has she had a past experience where maybe she doesn't want to trust the government? Could she be that little girl Creel? I can't remember the name. Finale time! Woo! I think by far the strongest episode of the series. I mean, it has the advantage of being a finale. Finales are either the strongest or the weakest, in my opinion, especially in a serialised storytelling, because it's the payoff, and the payoff is the best part of any storytelling. But if you do the payoff wrong, it's the worst part. Best or worst episodes of the series, in my opinion. This, for me, a perfect conclusion that just nearly, emphasis on nearly, wraps everything up into a perfect Christmas bow. Because it jumps towards Christmas.
Oh, fuck off.
See what I did there?
Did you see what I did there?
It's a scam.
We've had hints throughout the series of Hopper's backstory, but here it's kind of brought into the limelight for the first time. We've had him like have conversations saying he doesn't regret it. He's speaking to a lady. He mentions, I can't remember his daughter's name, but he mentions her name in passing conversation. And now for the first time we get flashbacks, and he was in a marriage, he was a dad, and his daughter fell ill, and he lost her. And it's this really actual, throughout the episode, we kind of just see that story progressing, and it's a really sad story, but it kind of then gives a whole new layer of meaning to his determination and his commitment to this case and getting Will back for Joyce, because he couldn't stop what happened with his daughter, but he has a chance here to save Joyce going through that same pain. And it's just this real, it just gives him a whole new layer. He's already a great character, but it just gives so much more emotional depth to him, and it's good stuff. So we kind of get that throughout the episode, because him and Joyce, they are going to be tortured and killed by Hawkins' lab, well, specifically him, but he reaches a deal with Brenner that he'll give them Elle's location, and they will be allowed to go into the Upside Down, search for Will, bring him back, and they'll never talk about it again. It will just be forgotten. Brenner agrees, because he's like, well, they're not surviving because someone earlier this season got sent in and all that came back was a bloody cable. So he's like, yeah, deal. Win-win for me. Shock to him, they succeed. Hawkins' lab people head out to the school to collect Elle. I do want to double check, but I can't tell if Hopper knows that they're going to get away with it, or if he is just willing to sacrifice Elle at this point. I'm not too sure. Nancy and Jonathan decide to leave the kids because they think they'll be safe at the school, and to go back to Joyce's house and to set up their traps and kill the Demogorgon, because they think if they can draw the Demogorgon away from the Upside Down, then it'll make their life easier, so they're going to go do that. As they're doing that, they cut themselves together to draw it there, and as soon as they do that, who rocks up but Steve, wanting to apologise to Jonathan. He assumes that Jonathan's hurt Nancy, storms in, sees the Christmas lights, the traps, he's like, what the hell is going on here? And then the Demogorgon comes in, and collectively they fight it, weaken it, and Steve's kind of then brought into the shenanigans that way, which is really kind of just, he kind of gets a good, like, he does leave, he's happy, he's like, yeah, I'm off, bye, but then he turns around, comes back, and he saves, can't remember if it's Nancy or Jonathan, but either way, he has a redemptive moment, and it kind of sets his character on a much better journey going forward. The kids notice that the government and the army have arrived to collect Elle, so they kind of run away through the school, And as they're sort of cornered, Elle uses her powers, and we get one of the most satisfying deaths, in my opinion, of unnamed evil corporate lady who shot Benny.
You little bitch!
She and a bunch of men, they're kind of like, eyes are bleeding, ears are bleeding. They drop to the floor dead, and because there's so much blood there, and we know the Demogorgon works like a shark, the Demogorgon rocks up, and then the army are having to fight it in the school. Brenner, he gets attacked by the Demogorgon, and it's just like, yes, all the bad men have been taken out by the thing that they've caused. It's a pretty satisfying payoff, and the kids run away, but Ella's very weak now. She has been through it in this last 24 hours with using her powers.
She never stops, that girl.
And the kids hide themselves away in the classroom. Yeah, so we sort of just kind of get the Demogorgon saves the kids in a sense and takes care of all of the bad men. The kids hide in the classroom. The Demogorgon bursts in, and it's actually hilarious that the kids think that the rocks that they've collected early in the season and a slingshot is going to be enough to stop this Demogorgon when the army and their machine guns couldn't do it. But after a few attempts, the fourth one hits the Demogorgon in the face, and it goes zooming back. But obviously it's just Elle. She's now up, and she's like using the last of her powers. Mike tries to stop her because he knows she's really drained. She throws him back, and they kind of just watch on as Elle ends the season, sacrificing herself essentially, destroying the Demogorgon, but she kind of just stands there. It's a recurring theme for how most of these seasons end, with a good old...
No. So let's move on.
The Demogorgon dies, but Elle is gone too. And I forgot to say earlier this episode, Mike finally makes a move with Elle. They kiss. It's really sweet, like this childhood romance storyline. But it comes off from a really funny moment where he says oh, Nancy will be like your sister, and then she's like, oh, you'd be my brother, and he's like, whoa, no. And he has to try and explain incest without confirming that he loves her. It's really funny. You should watch the show. And then that just leaves Joyce and Hopper finally find Will. He's sort of been plugged in to the upside down with that was plugged in. He's on the wall, a vine going into his body. They have to peel that off, destroy the vine, and they have to give him CPR and bring him back. And that's all intercut with Hopper watching his daughter flatline as the doctor's... It actually got me a bit emotional. I won't lie. It got me a bit emotional. I think I probably cried the first time I watched it, but I watched it with my flatmate and I just sat there oh my God. I think it's just the music. It's so good. And that's kind of the season. That's most of it. And then when I said that this season is nearly, emphasis on nearly, perfectly wrapped up into a perfect bow, because then we kind of get an epilogue of a month later. And aside from, we assume that Elle sacrificed herself to and died, Will comes back, he is kind of recovering, we get to Christmas, and all seems well and good. They're sort of joking about what they think's under the tree and all that stuff. Nearly everything is concluded this season, and it could have been, this is it, and I would think one of the best shows ever made. It's so good. But it's not, because we do get a few teasers of a possible future, or maybe just it could have been a few teasers of maybe not everything is good, but that's all you're getting, and I would have still loved that. The first one that's less ominous is more just a relationship one, is Steve and Nancy are still together, but Jonathan is now collecting his brother from people's houses because they're not letting him cycle home at the moment. Nancy goes after Jonathan to give him a present, and it's a new camera from her and Steve, and she gives him a little peck on the cheek, and it's kind of been hinted throughout the season that he has feelings for her, and it's just she reciprocating, but she's still with Steve, so that's kind of an open, could that take a turn. Then the other two things is Will goes to the toilet before dinner to wash his hands, and he coughs up a slug, presumably from when the thing was in him, and has a momentary flash that he's still inside the upside down. So it's kind of the lasting impacts something's not fully right there. Some strange things are happening.
Oh, shut your face.
And then the third thing, Hopper leaves his work Christmas party early and places some Eggo waffles and some food that he's taken from the tables into a little box in the forest. We don't know who for, we can guess, but that's that. So we're kind of given these few nuggets of there is potential for more, but equally, if we didn't have those nuggets, or if we did have those, I could have just been like, oh, okay, perfect season. And yeah, my final few notes are, this is just a masterclass in establishing important information and exposition, but doing it in interesting and fun ways. Like, we're sort of given the context of the quarry location, the dangers of it, but it's done through like Hopper dismissing like a street rumour that someone did the jump when they were a kid and they survived. Like, Hopper's like, no, that's stupid. Like, that just feels like a passing conversation establishing Hopper's brains, but really then that comes up to be relevant a few times. We also kind of get like the fun explanations of putting this whole extraterrestrial sci-fi stuff into just Dungeons and Dragons logic of the Demogorgon is what this creature is. It's what is now referred to by everyone. We also get kind of like the board being flipped upside down to explain where Will is, this like parallel dimension. The whole analogy of the paper plate and popping a hole through it to bridge between parallel universes that Mr. Clark gives at the funeral. All of the exposition is done in ways that is really engaging. And then on the flip side, we then also get the flashbacks throughout the series, which just helps keep us hooked because we're slowly learning the context and answers. Just, it's done really well. And as I said, the mysteries, they're constantly being answered, but in ways that pushes the story along into new directions, and so good. I'm actually fearful now on a rewatch that like,
Why do you keep... What's the problem now?
the mystery in series 2 isn't done as satisfyingly, isn't done as engagingly. I'm scared that series 3 is going to feel really slow. I'm scared because it doesn't have as much to hook us on until later on into the series, I feel. And I'm scared that series 4, especially with its longer run times, is going to feel weaker. And that scares me for series 5. But hopefully that's just going to be completely proved wrong by next week's video. I want to take a moment to talk about the music, because the soundtrack is amazing. I will never skip those titles. They are so good. And just like both the original score, the synth 80s feel, that kid song is just... I remember I cycled back after a night out with my friends as the sun was rising to that, and like it's so nostalgic. Like, it's such a good soundtrack. I love a soundtrack that you can listen to outside of a film and it just hits, and that soundtrack hits. Should I Stay or Should I Go Now is just a great song that they've used. They do a really nice cover of Heroes, which is used for some of the emotional moments, like when they find Will's body. And it's just such a good cover. Like, everything about this season is so good. In this season, the aesthetics is perfect. It's lit and shot so nicely. It's got a lot of greys and muted colours for an 80s setting, but the costumes and everything is still so 80s. But like, it's filmed like a horror in the 80s. It's dark, it's scary. It creates like an unsettling ambience as you're watching, which in contrast to like series 3 onwards, I feel like it becomes a lot more pop colour and kind of loses a bit of just the horror you get from the visuals. I think the reason why the season works so well is that at its core, it's a story about relationships and dynamics, and there's characters I haven't spoken about, like such as Lonnie, Willem, Jonathan's dad. He's an awful dad. He's only there briefly for the opportunity of money, but we kind of just get some really good building of relationships, friends opening up, siblings opening up to each other, siblings being there for each other, parents being there for their kids, but the kids being there for them. It's just, the whole story is rooted in love and relationships, and I think it just makes it so much more accessible when like something so sci-fi and extraterrestrial and thriller like that, and horror almost, has that kind of rooting in emotion. It makes it much more, like, my mum really enjoyed this season, and I think that's the main reason, is because it's more so just about the characters and their experiences and their care and love for one another, that drives the story, that drives their actions, and it just so happens that it's happening in this sci-fi story. And I think, yeah, that's why I love the series so much, because it has emotion to it, and it's great. It's so good. I'm going to stop talking there. Stranger Things Season 1, what do I give it out of 5? I think I would give this a 4.5 out of 5, because nothing's ever fully perfect. I think this is as near to as the show may get. I'm excited to be proven wrong. But yeah, just an incredible season, incredible mystery boxes, storytelling, characters. Best characters from this season: Dustin, Hopper, Mike, Nancy. Probably those 4, I'd say, are the best. All for different reasons. Joyce, how did I forget Joyce? Elle, they're all good. They're all good.
Great script. Great cast.
If you haven't rewatched this season, I just think go do it. Especially now it's like Halloween, spooky season, winter's coming in. It's so good. Like, genuinely, I enjoyed rewatching it, and I'm so excited to go in season 2. I feel like it's the one I remember the least, so I really hope season 2 just hits. But yes, thank you for joining. Like and subscribe, please share. Going to be doing Stranger Things Season 2 next week, and from there we'll just keep it rolling until Stranger Things 5 comes around. Thank you very much for watching and giving me your time. I am the Film Graduate. Thank you. Hello everybody. Oh god, that was horrible.